Learn B. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up.
Charity is the first word, so a C is placed by the heart, saving the people on it like a float, made out of a 3, for the 3 in chapter 13. And suffereth is the 1, for the 1 in chapter 13, made stretched out long from the land, saving the people on the heart, made out of a royal blue 4, for verse 4, that you can think that the 1 is like a rope that is swimming and stretching out and suffering to save the people. To remember, this verse begins with charity suffereth. You can think both swim and stretch start with an S to help remember the S in suffereth, and the stretched out 1 you can think of for long. And is kind, you can think that it is very kind of the 1 and 3 to save the royal blue verse 4 people. Charity envieth not is the 3 made into a heart again for charity, that has a pair of eyes that are squinting, because we sometimes squint our eyes when we envy someone. The 1 is made going across this envying heart to illustrate a not sign, for charity envieth not. There is also a V in envieth, and if you add a line on the right side of the V to represent not, it makes a 4. So a royal blue 4 for verse 4 is drawn beside the envieth not heart. Charity vaunteth not itself. Since vaunteth means to boast and overvalue yourself, another 3 made into a heart for charity is drawn over the tree. The 1 is going across the heart to illustrate a not sign again, for charity vaunteth not itself. There is also a V at the beginning of vaunteth, so another royal blue 4 for verse 4 is made out of a V and a not sign and placed beside the vaunteth not itself heart. Is not puffed up is the 3 made into a puffed up heart that you can think is trying to go up into the tree, and a royal blue 4 is drawn beside it with the lines made into arrows going up to also represent up. The 1 going across the puffed heart again illustrates a not sign, for is not puffed up. You can tie these two together with the word up to think that the vaunteth heart is up in the tree, and this heart is puffed up and trying to go up in the tree too.
And it goes together like this. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Next. 1 Corinthians 13:5. Doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil.
Doth is the first word, so a D is placed by the wavy lines of the chapter 13 charity heart to represent the heart behaving itself unseemly, like the heart is moving all around and acting very odd and out of control. To remember, this verse begins with doth not. Not is the 1, for the 1 in chapter 13 going across the heart to illustrate not, for doth not behave itself unseemly. A B is drawn to represent the B in the beginning of behave, that you can think the heart is also behaving unseemly because the bee is buzzing all around it. You can think of the wavy lines making a royal blue 5 for verse 5, also for behave itself unseemly. To help you remember the word unseemly, you can think of these two bottom wavy lines making a U for the U in unseemly. Seeketh not her own is the heart made out of a 3 by the coconuts on the tree, with hands also made out of a 3 that you can think is seeking to get the coconuts on the tree for her own self, with a royal blue 5 also for verse 5, going from the coconuts and going around one of the coconuts that she is getting for herself, and the one again for naught. Is not easily provoked is the heart made out of the 3 again that you can think is easily upset with an unhappy face, and provoked by having the ends of the 3 made to look like arms and fists that are ready to punch someone, with the arm and fist on the left made into a royal blue 5 for verse 5, and the one again for naught, for is not easily provoked. You can also correlate the 3 at the top of the heart making a capital E for easy, and the hand and arm making a P shape for provoked. You can also think that this heart is looking at the heart by the tree, and is being easily provoked by her seeking to get all the coconuts for her own self. Thinketh no evil is the heart made out of a 3 with the caption sign above it to illustrate thinking, and a royal blue 5 is drawn into a man's arm with an iron stick to break the 10 Commandments, with the 1 going across the heart for the heart not thinking this way, for thinketh no evil. So to tie these 3 together, you can think that this heart should not be thinking evil and getting easily provoked, that this heart is seeking to get all the coconuts for her own self. And you can tie the first 2 together with the SEE in unseemly and the SEE in seeketh.
And it goes together like this. 1 Corinthians 13:5 doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. 1 Corinthians 13:5 doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. 1 Corinthians 13:5 doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. 1 Corinthians 13:5. Next, 1 Corinthians 13:6. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth.
Rejoiceth is the first word, so an R is placed by the 3, for the 3 in chapter 13, made into 2 smiling faces to represent rejoices, with the 1 for the 1 in chapter 13 going across the smiling faces to remember this verse begins with rejoices not. Since disobeying God's commandment is iniquity, and this is verse 6, the 6th commandment, thou shalt not kill, is represented here with a royal blue 6 for verse 6 made into a sword at the top of the 6 and a man's head at the bottom to represent thou shalt not kill, that you can think of for not rejoicing in iniquity or disobeying the 6th commandment. But rejoices in the truth, you can again think of the 3 made into 2 smiling faces for rejoiceth, and the 1 is made into the 10 Commandments to represent truth. You can also think that the 1 is making a T shape for the T at the beginning of truth.
And it goes together like this. 1 Corinthians 13:6. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. 1 Corinthians 13:6. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. 1 Corinthians 13:6. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. 1 Corinthians 13:6. Next, 1 Corinthians 13:8. Charity never faileth.
Charity is the first word, so a C is placed by the heart for charity. To remember, this verse begins with charity. Never faileth is the heart made out of a 3, for the 3 in chapter 13, sinking down from the bank of the land into the water with royal blue bubbles, with 2 of them put together to make an 8 for verse 8, and the others you can think could also go together to make 8s. You can think that the bubbles are the air bubbles that the heart would make if it went down into the water and stopped or failed. The 1 in chapter 13 going across the heart illustrates never, for charity never doing this, sinking down into the water and failing or ending.
And it goes together like this. 1 Corinthians 13:8. Charity never faileth. 1 Corinthians 13:8. Charity never faileth. 1 Corinthians 13:8. Charity never faileth. 1 Corinthians 13:8. Next, Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith.
But is the first word, so a B is placed by the 5 for chapter 5, that is made into a vine and a branch at the top and a bunch of grapes at the bottom to go along with the next words, the fruit. To remember, this verse begins with, but the fruit. This illustrates Jesus being the vine and us being the branch. And if we are connected with Jesus, it will produce the fruit of the Spirit, being the bunch of grapes. You can remember the fruit of the Spirit is in Galatians with the Galatians icon swords that are below the fruit, to think of cutting some fruit off of the branch, or like the swords are knives to cut fruit with, because we have to cut some fruit with knives. Of the Spirit is the first royal blue 2, for verse 22, made into a dove to represent the Spirit. Is love is the top of the next royal blue 2, made into an arrow to represent the word is, pointing to the bottom of the 2, made into a heart for love. Joy is the next 522, with the 5 made into a smiling face at the top, and the bottom of the 5 making a J shape with an O and a Y for joy. Peace is the first royal blue 2, made into a chair, to think it is peaceful to sit and rest and relax. Long-suffering is the next royal blue 2, made into a long sword at the top, and a person at the bottom to represent long-suffering if they get cut by a sword. Gentleness in the next 522 is the top of the 5 made into a person patting a little boy's head at the bottom of the 5 to represent being gentle. Goodness is the first royal blue 2, made into a hand going up to be good by holding on and keeping the commandments of God on the 2 white pillars of stone. Faith is the next royal blue 2, made into a cross leaning over to represent that we have faith in Jesus' death to cover our death penalty, and that he loves us and will help us get to heaven.
And it goes together like this. Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith. Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith. Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith. Galatians 5:22. Next, Galatians 5:23. Meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law.
Meekness is the first word, so an M is placed by the 5 made into an arm coming down and patting the man with his eyes closed to represent meekness. And you can think he is being meek and not getting upset, even with the Galatian swords by him that might harm him. To remember, this verse begins with meekness. Temperance is the pair of lips on the royal blue 2, for the 2 in verse 23, that are turning away and not eating the double-decker ice cream cone made out of the royal blue 3 in verse 23. Against such there is no law is the royal blue 2 made into hands that you can think are going against the commandments made out of the royal blue 3 to represent law, and a light gray line going across it for no. You can also think of the Galatians icon swords as going against God's law. So there is no law of God that goes against being loving, joyful, peaceful, long-suffering, gentle, good, faithful, meek, or temperate.
And it goes together like this. Galatians 5:23. Meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Galatians 5:23. Meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Galatians 5:23. Meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Galatians 5:23. Magnificent.